I call this regular supervisor meeting to order this July 11th, 2023. First and foremost, we're getting to some important business after public comments and such, and our consent agenda referencing our resolution honoring Officer Wagner in support of legislation for changes to LODA. And so when we go into our moment of silence here in a second, please be in continuous prayer for our law enforcement community as well as the family of Mr. Wagner. So at this time, let us all rise for that moment of silence. Now we will go on to the pledge. Mr. Barton.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're now going to begin the public comment section of our agenda. Reverend Rose.
My name is Reverend James Rose, 2225 Union Hill Drive in Indiana. Good afternoon, members of the board and Candace McGarry. I come to you this afternoon on behalf of the Gladstone Senior Center. First, let me thank the board for how you have supported our center in the past. For we are requesting $3,000 for a defibrillator for our center. We have discussed among ourselves the need for a defibrillator because we are seniors and many of us have medical problems. We know that the defibrillator will help save lives. We have two members of our group who knows how to use a defibrillator. Blue Ridge Medical Center has volunteered to train other members of our center. About a month ago, one of our members fell and fractured her hip. It took nearly an hour before EMS arrived. They had to respond all the way from Wintergreen. So that's why we are making the request in the event of an emergency. As I said before, we know that the defibrillator can help save lives. We thank you, the members of the Gladstone Senior Center.
One thing Ernie just reminded me, I did forget to state the rules. 3 minutes per individual. Please state your name and address for the record. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you can have 5 minutes. Please specify that group. Only one member of that group is allowed to speak on behalf of it. And if you need a few more seconds to wrap up, it will be at the chair's discretion to give you more time. So moving on to Clinton Bibb.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, board, administration. I am James Clinton Bibb. I am from 4141 Phoenix Road, Arrington, Virginia. And what I'd like to address today is the use of ATE, automated traffic enforcement, in our community. I want to stress that the lines of law enforcement and revenue generation should never be blurred. And it's in my opinion that ATE not only blurs the line, but it crosses the line. ATE is not law enforcement. It is not deployed nor marketed as such. And nor is it a tool to increase public safety, but merely as a method of revenue generation. Cons include incorrectly ticketed drivers, does not identify drivers, but merely the vehicle, leaving the burden otherwise of the owner to prove otherwise. Also, privatization of traffic enforcement, as many things, is going to incentivize companies to prioritize profits over public safety. And that is exactly what ATE is. ATE is revenue over enforcement. That's all.
Bill Piercy.
William Piercy, 608 Fortune's Cove, here in Livingston. Can you hear me okay, Jesse?
Sounds good.
I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to say thank you to the board for their participation with the fireworks and the fire department and all that went into making that what I felt like was a real success there for the first time here in Nelson County, and hope that we continue with this as a good start.
Second, another thank you. Can you hear me okay, John?
We got you.
My voice don't carry very well. For the participation with the Jim Fortune and Earl Hammer dedication this other day, and the what was the proclamation, I guess what it was, or is it the month of July or the week of whatever that was, to recognize them and the music in Nelson County. And again, thank you for that, an opportunity to speak. These 3 minutes, it sometimes take more than that, but, get up here and say, thank you for doing those good things. I believe that, encouraging the public participation in the board supervisors meeting helps to raise the confidence, in this process. Along those lines, if these, YouTube videos could be made just a little more clear, and particularly with the board there, you can't hardly see that at all on the YouTube videos. And, like I said, my voice don't carry very well, but I couldn't hardly understand the word I said when I was on last time. So, anyway, I was wondering, could you bring some of that, school board equipment over here, that, Prometheon and the sound system they got works real well over there. Let's see, what else I had, website. Yeah, that covered that. I want to say thank you for VDOT getting the grass cut there. I know it's a continuous effort, and it's about time to start over again with this rain we've been having. But they're doing a good job on that now. I just encourage them to be more proactive and aggressive in their continuous improvement of widening the roads and extending these left turn, slow down lanes. I sent an email to you, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it yet, about the park over in Waynesboro. They call it Riverside Park. Be something to take a look at as far as what we do out at Larkin property. I think they've done a real good job out there, and maybe somebody on their city board will get the way of it. But just again, wanted to say thanks for having those meetings, and we'll stay in touch. I guess that's about it. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Bill. Edith Napier?
Edith Napier, 43 Napier Loop Road, Carrington, Virginia. First, I would like to thank you again for your service. Secondly, I would like to apologize to Ernie, the others of you who we meet out in the street every day and we confront you immediately with what's going wrong in the county. I've forgotten from school board days past that can affect you over time. So I'm hoping that I'm going to make an effort, and others will, to channel their concerns in the right manner. Last month, I came to you regarding the grass being cut on the southern end of the county, one of the most underserved areas of the county. Juneteenth happened, grass wasn't cut, it was tall, people were sliding up to the front in their cars to see how to cross over. And a week later, St. 29, which was a main highway in Nelson County, that was an accident. The accident happened to have been at 29 and Napier Loop Road. In the middle of the day, grass was extremely tall, which required the routing of large tractor trailers on a small neighborhood road. I'm not complaining about that, because I understand that traffic has to keep moving. But I'm concerned that because VDOT was negligent, it ended up endangering the citizens on that road too in order to keep traffic moving. I'm going to ask each of you, please impress upon VDOT the importance of cutting the grass in a timely manner especially on Route 29 and especially 29 South, which seems to be kind of a neglected area. We don't want to wait till somebody's killed to all of a sudden figure out we could cut the grass and make a difference. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak that was not on the agenda at this time? Not on the agenda on your list. Hearing none, we will now close the public comment section of this agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have minutes for approval and amendment to recreation fee schedule. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Yeah.
Motion from Skip. Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Second from Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, we'll do a vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, consent agenda passes unanimously. So as we move into this next item, our resolution, I think it's important that for those who may not know or ever, I imagine most of you do, we recently lost one of our own in Nelson County in the line of duty, Mr. Chris Wagner. He was serving up in Wintergreen, and of course, in the line of duty, he lost his life. As a result, we as a board want to honor him and his service to this community. And it is also important that we as a locality look to see how we can improve situations that arise. And soon after the incident, Mr. Parr and Mr. McGarry and I went up to Wintergreen to drop off some food and have a quick discussion. And one thing that we've learned is that those who are licensed or properly licensed police officers who work for private entities do not get line of duty benefits. So what does this mean? Some of the individuals who serve us today, in the event that they were to get killed in the line of duty, their families would be able to realize some monetary contributions similar to a life insurance policy. And this benefit does not exist for Mr. Wagner. And as for those of you who don't know, he struggled financially, or that family will struggle financially absent of him. So this resolution came about with some of our discussions with them and state legislators, and this is a no-brainer. I think we as Nelson County want to take care of our own. We want to see the future be for those who do serve our community, that we are going to take care of their families when they are killed in the line of duty. And we want to, one, like I said, honor his memory, and two, begin the second part of this and begin working legislation. I, soon after that meeting, confronted some state senators and state delegates, and there is legislation already in the works and will be hopefully on the agenda in the next coming cycle. I have spoken to Senator Mark Peake as well as Delegate Ellen Campbell, and they're working together with their respective majority heads on how they want to verbalize and how they want to word and what proper procedures it should be to accomplish the proper legislation to see that this is changed. So at this time, we have this resolution. We're going to read it. Upon its completion, there have been several other localities who have agreed to take this on as well to honor his memory, as well as to support the same legislation. So we're the first step in the right direction over the next 8 months. So, Mr. Reed, you mind reading? Moving.
I'd be honored to read the resolution. Before I do, I really want to thank our board chairman, Mr. Rutherford, for taking the initiative on this. He moved, he moved really quickly to get this as an idea in front of many people, localities, elected officials, and ourselves. And I did get we all got an email from Mr. Jay Roberts this morning offering his gratitude for the resolution, his support for it, and I wanted to make note because he noted that he could not be here today. He prevented from coming. So we have Resolution R 2023-45, Nelson County Board of Supervisors, resolution honoring Officer Mark Christopher Wagner II and requesting an amendment of the Line of Duty Act. Whereas Mark Christopher Wagner II
served for 7 years with the Massanutten Police Department, beginning his law enforcement career as a gate attendant in May of 2019, earned police officer status following his graduation from Central Shenandoah Police Academy. And whereas Officer Wagner joined the Wintergreen Police Department in August 2020 and diligently served the Wintergreen community with unwavering honor and commitment. And whereas Officer Mark Christopher Wagner II was killed in the line of duty on June 16, 2023, in his capacity as a law enforcement officer employed by the Wintergreen Police Department, a private police department. And whereas the Line of Duty Act, Virginia Code 9.9-400, excludes private police officers from the benefits of the act. And whereas, by definition under the Code of Virginia, private police officers are law enforcement officers. And whereas private police officers, just as their counterparts employed by a police department or sheriff's office, which is a part of or administered by the Commonwealth or any political subdivision thereof, are responsible for the prevention and detection of crime and the enforcement of the penal laws, and are exposed to the same risks of injury or death. And whereas it is the sense of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors that the Line of Duty Act should be amended to afford private police officers the benefits available under the Act. Now therefore be it resolved, the Nelson County Board of Supervisors hereby honors Officer Mark Christopher Wagner II of Wintergreen Police Department for his heroism and honorable service to the citizens of Wintergreen and the county, for whom he made the ultimate sacrifice. And be it further resolved, the Nelson County Board of Supervisors hereby calls upon the General Assembly to amend the Code of Virginia to afford private police officers the benefits available under Virginia Code 9.9400 in the Line of Duty Act. And be it finally resolved, said board hereby directs that a copy of this resolution requesting these state code amendments be delivered forthwith to the county's representatives in the General Assembly.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Harvey. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Barton. Yes. Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes. So if for a second, obviously we have a few guests with us today, Mr. Russell, Mr. Sheets, and Ms. Harris. Please know that we are here for you. We support you all, and members of our law enforcement community need to know this, and please extend this. And we're just getting started on trying to bridge these gaps. Thank you all for your service. Okay. Moving on in the agenda. We have some presentations that are going to be made. Let's see, we got the VDOT report. Robert.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a whole lot to report this month. We have been mowing in Nelson County. Pretty much everything on the west side of 29 has been completed. We're still working on the east side. We still have tractors mowing. We're getting up into the Shipman and Winjana area. Hopefully that will be completed in the next couple of weeks. Right, the weather doesn't distract us and everything. And also we've been working the last month since the last board meeting, since the Facebook post came out. We've been working to resolve those issues and concerns. I know a lot of those were mowing, and we've been working on those, but with some others that have some signage and some other things that we've been addressing those also. As far as our rural rustic paving of unpaved roads, hard surfacing, Honeysuckle Road is complete, Ball Mountain is complete, and we're starting to work on Jack's Hill. We have a pretty good drainage structure to put in over there, and the road will be reclosed to put in that drainage structure. Initially, did reopen, and we've been doing a lot of cleanup, trees and flood damage from some of these storms where we got heavy rain. I know Mr. Parr brought up some shoulders on Route 56 between 29 and 151. Those have been repaired. I think there was some on Rosen Road also. I have not gotten anything back from our traffic engineers on the Powell River Railroad underpass, additional warning signs and detection system. I am pushing them to get me something so we can see what it involves and what it's gonna cost to install it, so. Hopefully that'll come up pretty soon. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other information, that I share with you, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone has.
Barton?
I just want to put this record because we talked about it, about the area on 56, close to the Buckingham Bridge, and the finishing of that paving area. And you said that you were aware of that, and
Yes, and that lower section of 56, and Reverend Rose asked me a question when it was gonna be paid. It's looking like in 2025 is when that's set up to be paid. So that don't do you a whole lot of good, but we will go down there and try to make some improvements to make it last until then.
Mr. Harvey? Mr. Reed?
Yeah, I've got a few things. First of all, not sure if you're aware, but the Department of Parks and Rec is actively exploring possibilities for developing a piece of property that the county owns, a disturbed property on the lower part of Finley Gap Road.
What road is that?
Finley Gap.
Finley, yeah.
Yeah, and it's north of Norwood.
Yeah.
But the hopes are is that we'll be taking some positive steps pretty soon to start to do some development there and starting to make it something that could be more of a destination and a park that would be utilized by the people here, and people have to be able to get there.
Now, is that on the unpaved section?
Yes.
That's on the unpaved section, isn't it?
the road that he's talking about, there are 5 creeks that don't have culverts. And I think you said it was 2 creeks.
Well, there's 2 significant ones that
Before
that have
property.
been brought to my attention specifically, but Mr. Barton's more familiar with that.
Yeah, that's why she.
Yeah.
I mean, that, as crude a road as you can, it counts as a road in Nelson County, is that road that goes from Finley Mountain Road down to the river.
Mhm.
Mostly logging trucks use it. It's got 5 creeks that cross it that don't have culverts. And I think there are only 2 creeks from the east that don't have culverts, that he's interested, or I'm interested, we're all interested in getting, so times of, rain, high water, that would be passable.
I mean, it's not live streams running across pavement,
Yeah.
running across.
No, it's not paved, it's all dirt, but it's
It's all
live,
dirt road, yeah.
live streams running across the road, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as county gets into, the approval process for whatever, through the planning commission and does it and that, that's a long road. It's quite a long road, and, I certainly hope the county will be open to, asking for proffers to improve that road, because, really the only funding we have inside, we have secondary road construction funding, which most of that is designated for unpaved roads. We get some tele fees, which is not a lot, maybe it's $50,000 or $60,000, $70,000 tele fee, that's secondary road money. And we get our county safety money, which is about $50,000. But we already use that to take care of a lot of other things on primary, like taking care of the wayside up on the Nelson Wayside. I'm just saying, if there's gonna be a need for a major road improvement, we, being VDOT and the county, we need to keep our eyes open for opportunities to ask for help from that development to fix the road. Because it's either that, or it's a small scale submission, which is Mr. Reed, you know, that's a long drawn out process. There are economic development funds that the county can apply for, but some of that's a match. And that funding is not, it's not big dollars. Maybe you might get $1 million, $1.5 million out of that. So, I mean, I'm just asking that we keep our eyes open for what we need to be looking for from the development to participate in any road.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that, but, you know, part of this is that we all keep our eyes open for opportunities and you keep us informed.
Yeah.
When there might be an opportunity for us to start moving forward on some of those things, because the success of what Parks and Rec hopes to do there is gonna be dependent on, you know, the ability for people to get there in a safe way.
What we can do, Mr. Reed, we can take a good hard look at that road and see what deficiencies are in it now, and maybe try to correct those.
We're talking, I'm not talking about just during a rainstorm, water coming. These are what would be called fords, you know.
Yeah.
The creek, they're always.
I mean, basically, right now, that road most of the traffic on that road is used to a hunting season.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's a hunting season road. It's traffic, but, we'll take a look at it and, you know, I know we did 8 or 9 years ago, we did quite a bit of work because it was almost impassable. And there was water running everywhere, no ditches, so. Mr. Reed, we'll take a good look at it and we'll do some inventory and look at it and see what it needs and do some preventive maintenance on it.
That's great, because we're starting to move forward on things, and so, you know, we can do this together. It'd be a real positive thing for us.
To the property, the main access is from, I guess you say from the west. The road is in fairly good shape down near James River.
Yeah.
There's a church, I forget the name of it, it's up that road.
So that road comes out on the road that goes to Regina, right? Yeah.
It comes out, the river road,
River Road.
whatever, I forget what it's called.
Well, that's good. That's, okay.
Okay, next thing, one of my constituents contacted me this week, and around Dutch Creek Road, there was some work that was being done. I think a culvert was being replaced down there.
On Dutch Creek.
I think it's on Dutch Creek. Robert, is that Dutch Creek? Yes. Yeah.
We completed it? We,
It just finished. It's up after the last week.
Yeah, anyway, while that was going on, someone that contacted me, had noticed that, some of the pumps that they use to divert the water, that are vacuum pumps that use oil and, appeared to be leaking a lot, and that there was a lot of oil on the ground, and he was offering some support for trying to remediate that spillage that happens, but those, you know, if those pumps are old and not under good repair, you know, he said there was literally a pile of oil, you know, plastic oil cans sitting around that clearly they'd gone through during the process, and would like to see that you're not contributing to the pollution of the creek there. So that was his comment to me that I'm passing on to you.
well, our bridge crew, not my bridge crew, they don't work for me, but our district bridge crew, they're in charge of that structure. I'll contact them when I leave this meeting to look at those pumps, and if they're leaking, to either fix them or replace them.
So thank you for that. Finally, I've not heard anything recently about the 151 corridor study. And we are, we're working on our comprehensive plan. We're working on the final draft as we speak, and or at least the potential final draft. We've still got some more comments going in on it, but the data from that study is really critical for for us in terms of that. So if it's possible to be sure that that information is available as soon as it can be, so we can make sure it gets included in.
I'll have to talk to Rick
Yeah.
about that, because I don't remember when he said that was gonna be complete. I know he mentioned it when we had our meeting back earlier this year.
Yeah, I was not able to track down what that was. I didn't look really hard. I just knew that I hadn't heard anything yet. And as we start, compiling everything for that, that information is critical for the 151 corridor's future and how we envision it going forward in Compline.
I'll check into that, Mr. Reed.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you go.
I know you're aware that we talk about the priority of cutting grass. And I would like you to think about setting priority, because in the southern part of the county, there are many places where the crossovers, where the grass blocks your view. It makes it very difficult. And if that could be a priority to do it earlier in the process. I know you have this you do this, then you do this, and then you do this. But in the southern part of the county, there seems to be many places in which the grass, when it gets high,
Well, I mean,
is very difficult.
It's more Johnson grass and those type of grasses.
Right,
down
in the
north.
northern part of the county, it's a lot of forests and shit in
It's not
between, but
much
the
of it.
southern part of the county, there's a lot more grass. And maybe you could, switch your priority and somehow get to that first.
Well, our priority, and Route 29 and I think 151, they're treated with a growth retarder as soon as the grass comes out. So usually, if that takes effect, that holds that down for a while, till we usually don't need to mow the 4 lanes until just prior to the 4th of July, usually about the middle of June. In the meantime, typically we start mowing secondaries around the 1st of May, or maybe late April. And then right before the 4th, let me back up. We hold off on the 4 lane of whatever's been treated with the growth retarder. Then we hit the 2-lane primaries, because they have a higher priority than secondary routes. And then after we do the 2-lane primaries, we usually start on secondaries, which is around the 1st of May. I do understand what you're saying. Typically, I know in the southern end of Nelson County, which is actually maintained by Amherst area headquarters, they start down in the Gladstone area, and go up and hit those routes down, because there's a lot of Johnson grass down there. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Barton, and we do, Bryant area headquarters pretty much mows the west side of 29, and Shipman mows the east side of 29, which may be a little bigger area. So we'll keep that in mind. We are intending on awarding a contract mowing contract where we have a contractor come in and help us mow secondary routes in Nelson County, Amherst, Appomattox, and Campbell. Because quite frankly, we don't have the people or the resources to knock it out like we would like to. And to get us off on doing some other work. I'm not gonna sit up here and make excuses that the mowing hasn't been delayed in Nelson County. But I will like to, everybody has their own story and their own obstacles. And as far as this, the east side of 29, which is covered by Shipman area headquarters, we're short people. We've had 3 vacancies for most of the month of May and June. Had several people out on medical leave. And from about the middle of May up until the end of June, I had 5 people working on the road at Chipman area headquarters. That's a fact. Does that change anything? Doesn't change anything. Doesn't make the grass get cut, but I'm just, I want to just give you some facts, not excuses as to why the mowing has been delayed.
I accept that. I
Okay,
accept what you're
and,
saying.
and,
But
and,
I'm
you know,
also saying, what some people have talked about is the danger of 29 is real. When that grass grows in the medium.
but we had mowed 29, we had mowed the intersections about the middle of May on 29. And, as far as that intersection, I think you was talking about that Napier, that accident. I had my superintendent take pictures, because, who sent that to me? Mr. Parr sent me a text of the intersection, said there's been an accident at Napier and 29. And I was superintendent, I said, you go up there and get me a picture, because it said vegetation. And, I can show everyone in here the picture. The vegetation didn't cause an accident. The
Why
way,
we can't, no talking from the audience, you can ask him when he leaves.
and I'll be glad to discuss that with anyone. I'm not here to defend or say anything, but I'm just saying, sometimes.
I'm not trying to blame it.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah, I'm not
I'm
blaming
saying that I live down there and I access 29 from a lot of those secondary roads there. And when you go across that highway, when that grass is high, it's dangerous.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all I'm saying.
okay,
And make you aware of that.
well, thank you.
And more so than is the north where most of the crossovers are woods, you know.
The weeds in the northern part of 29, it's not so much the grass, it's the weeds. Everything grows but the grass, as the weeds grow, so. But I understand y'all's concerns, and we certainly don't want to be the vegetation or the weeds or the grass to be a contributing factor to any vehicle accident. That's unacceptable, so. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Okay.
Mr. Harvey? I'm sorry, we already did you. Mr. Parr did send me a few notes. He had a question about a footbridge on Rose Mill Road. Check into that. He might send you an email here in a bit. He wanted to thank you for the repairs to the shoulders of another road that he had done. And also, did you get a chance to look at an email that he had sent you, a culvert?
Yes, and I'm gonna look at that here in a few minutes. That
Okay.
culvert needs replacing. It's under 151. We've got to get that culvert replaced.
Okay.
It's non-functioning.
Gotcha. He just said for the record, Mr. Parr is out for the day. He had to get a surgery he'd been planning on for a while, and he's out of commission for the next couple of days, but he's doing good and he'll be back on his feet. I think he's back on his feet kind of today, but not officially all the way. So be praying for Mr. Parr. Maybe shoot him an email and follow up on those items. As it relates to East District, Schuyler mowing, obviously we're having issues in the Schuyler area. I think you'd indicated you already have plans for that here in the coming week.
I talked to our shipment crew. They have one tractor up there mowing.
Okay.
Mowing up in Schuyler.
Excellent. There are a few potholes between Gordon's Crossing, which is Laurel Road, and Ball Mountain. There's a couple potholes that have come about. You guys have patched them a few times, and they're starting to come back again. Are those scheduled to be repaved? Do we get a repaving schedule at all in the future?
They blacktop plant mix or surface treated?
It's real
Surface
rustic,
treated.
surface treated, yeah.
I don't know when they'll be on the schedule,
Yeah.
But typically when we put them on the surface treatment schedule, we usually go ahead and go in before that and make all the
Right.
repairs that we need to,
Right.
like potholes and stuff.
So that's the only notes that I have for today.
And that's around 7:39.
6:39. 6:39.
6:39.
Yep.
6:39.
Any other questions for VDOT? Hearing none, Staver, you can catch him on his way out. Thank you, sir. Safe travels back.
Thank you.
Always good to have you.
Always good to have you.
Always a
Yeah.
pleasure.
All right, moving on to automated speed enforcement in school zones, Blue Line Solutions. Candy.
Good afternoon. I just want to do a quick introduction. We have Mr. Greg Hoxton here for Blue Line Solutions to discuss their automated speed enforcement program for school zones. County staff, the sheriff, and also the school superintendent, and also several supervisors, well, actually 2 supervisors, met with Mr. Hoxton to just kind of review this program, and we all thought it'd be beneficial for the board to have a presentation. Next steps following the presentation, the board could consider authorizing a public hearing, possibly on August 8th or whenever you prefer, to get the public's input on this program, or you could opt to move forward or take no action. So here's Mr. Hodgson. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to thank you for letting me come back today and speak with you. My name is Greg Halston. I live in Washington County, Virginia, in a little town of Wade Springs, just north of Abingdon. I'm a retired law enforcement veteran. I started my career back in 1996 in Smith County, transitioned to Washington County, and finished out my career with the city of Bristol in December of 2021. Then I stepped into my second career, which I had a passion for 26 years of traffic safety. And the General Assembly back in 2020 passed legislation in the Commonwealth of Virginia under 462882.1, which would allow this new type of enforcement within the Commonwealth. And it specifically focuses on 2 locations only for this to be used. And that is school zones and highway work zones. And our main focus is keeping our school zones safe, reducing the number of violations, and we focus on our children in those zones. And just to give you a background on our company, we have over 200 years of law enforcement experience within our organization. We're a private-owned organization. We're not a publicly traded company. Our owner started his law enforcement career back in the late 80s in a little county called Johnson County, Tennessee, which is Virginia-Tennessee border down there. He started this company here in 2010, focusing on the reduction of speeding violations in our school and work zones. We all here, me being former law enforcement, other law enforcement officers in the house, we're very familiar with each year in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have a program called Click It or Ticket. This is the most successful program that NHTSA has launched, and it's been around since 2000. What we do in the Click It or Ticket method is we go out and we choose an intersection in our county, locality, or town, and we do an observation of 100 drivers, and we take an observation of how many belted drivers that we have doing what they should do, and that's wearing their seatbelt at all times when they're operating a motor vehicle. Well, after we receive the funding from DMV to go out and do this type of DMV enforcement for the increase of seatbelt usage, we take that information that we've captured, we turn it into the DMV, and then after they get the information enrichment and put it on file, we launch what we call the public information and education phase of the program, which is proper education to the public. And any enforcement program is only successful on how well you educate the audience that the enforcement is effective. So our key component of this is proper education to the county citizens that this type of enforcement would be effective. So once in the Click It or Ticket program, you move forward and you educate that target audience. Then we go back and we do enforcement for 2 weeks. And then after that enforcement, we go back to that same intersection on the same day, same time, and take that initial study again and see how those seatbelt usage rates went up. And the reason this program, Click It or Ticket, has been so successful was because of 2 components: public information, number 1, combined with enforcement. Because if you only do public information, the only people that will put their seatbelts on or slow down is the people who pay attention to the education. The other ones, they don't. They just keep going. They don't wear their seatbelt and they speed. If you go solely on enforcement, the only people that you're educating is the people that you're stopping on the road. That's the ones that's getting the violation. So when you combine the 2 components together and you properly educate the people, and then you follow up with the enforcement, those 2 combined is why seatbelt rates go up. And me being the former officer, and I was a traffic sergeant, or first sergeant in our agency and overseeing all of our traffic safety division. And Southwest Virginia at one point in time was the reason the state of Virginia fell below the state seatbelt, the national rate, because of rollover crashes and young male drivers and pickup trucks with ejections. So our owner of this company took this program and flipped the model. And I'll go into that. We come out and we go to a school zone, to a chief or sheriff, we say, let us conduct a 5-day independent, unskewed data driving report in your school or work zone. And I come out to that locality, probably on a Sunday morning, and we deploy very, very small radar boxes, which contains what they call a Ka-band radar unit in it. And it captures the flow of vehicles and the violations for a week. And you get raw data. At that point in time, we share that data with the sheriff, chief, the board, school board members, because we want to come at this as a collaborative approach. Not just the sheriff, not just the chief, but we want the board members, the school board members to understand the gravity of the offenses and then look at this as a type of solution for the problem. So we came, and the reason I found Nelson County is where I live in Southwest Virginia. I know a former school superintendent who worked in Nelson County. And we met one day and we were talking, both of us had retired. And he was like, have you ever talked to Nelson County? He said, I-29 or Interstate 29 going between Charlottesville and Lynchburg. He said, it's terrible going down that mountain. And he was like, I worry every day of our buses crossing that 4-lane due to the amount of speeding violations. He's like, so I reached out to Sheriff Hill. We met last year, went over, and as you can see, our data was collected in September of 2022. And we came up here and deployed our devices in the school zones, 3 school zones. And I'll let you see the numbers for each one. And anyone, after a presentation today, if you would like to ask any questions of me now, I'll field any question and answer anything that you have today. I just want to make sure that everyone has a proper understanding of the way this should be implemented in any locality, any community. At Nelson County Middle and High School, this study was done in a 5-day period between Tuesday, September 27th and October 3rd, from the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now you'll see it's broken down into 3 windows. Usually it's a morning, midday, and afternoon. Usually in each school zone across the Commonwealth, some are different depending upon locality. The lights usually flash in the morning section and the afternoon. But as a whole day run, as this study, you had 45,282 vehicles come through the school zone on 29. 5,314 were considered to be a violation by statute. And under 46-882.1, you cannot consider a speeding violation for photo speed unless it's 11 or above the school zone speed limit. That is the only code that I'm aware of in the Commonwealth that put a actual buffer in a speed zone that did not give the discretion to the officer when he said the offense. Moving on, as you'll see, the little pie chart there, the gray, pardon me, I didn't have my glasses with me today. The blue, the little pie chart there, if I could please step over here, it says.
You got a little laser
Little pointer
thing.
there, little share, okay.
Yeah.
Right there. In the blue, that is considered 10 to 14 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. You had a little over 1,000 at that point in time. The orange is considered to be 15 to 20 above the posted speed limit.
Try to address the board,
Okay,
not the audience.
above the posted speed limit. And then anything in the gray is considered to be reckless driving by speed. That goes from a traffic infraction under the law to a class 1 misdemeanor by speed. Okay, that's 3,000 violations in that one school zone in that week or in that specific time frame. Rockfish Elementary School had 23,387 violations come through that school zone in a week's time. 2,241 violations considered for law 11 and above. As you can see, it breaks down the school. Each school zone varies. You had 1,700 violations, which is the lower end, 11 to 14. 454, which is 15 to 20, and then 21 reckless by speeding higher. The last school we did was High River. As you can see, also, they had 48,000 vehicles come through that school zone with 4,203 violations. I think it's about 2,500 from 10 to 14, 941 at 15 to 20, and then 702, 21 and above, which would be considered reckless by speeding. So what we try to do is, the only way to make sure a program is successful is to be 100% open and transparent with the data, and we like to share that with everyone. This is public available. Every board member should have a copy of it. School board members, if they want it, they can see what the numbers reflect in their school zone. That's how we identify if there's a problem. Now, once we do our problem and we identify it, if the locality decides to go with us, automated speed enforcement is what I consider to be a less punishing enforcement, but the General Assembly made this specifically for 2 locations, school zones and work zones. The state Supreme Court fee schedule, they have set the fine or the civil penalty for this under code to be $100 per violation. There's no points assessed to any type of violation like this at all. So it will not go on your driving record as a demerit point violation. It will not be reported to you, to your insurance company. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to miss a day. You'll not be charged any additional court assessment fee unless you follow the rebuttal process by code. So if you do receive a violation under this statute, whether it's the Nelson County adopted code, which they adopt a motor vehicle code under the local code, or if they decide to pass a local ordinance. So take, for instance, if you're a CDL holder and you go through a school zone in your personal vehicle, and you pay that, it's not going to reflect on your CDL license. I'm a CDL holder. If I was to go out here and get stopped today in a traditional traffic stop and get a violation by an officer, if I go to district court, I don't qualify for driving school because I'm a CDL holder and federal statute will not permit you to go to a driving school to keep the points off your record. So the Supreme Court set the fine high enough to deter bad driving behavior. So to show how our program works as far as going back to public information and education and how this works, and this absolutely blew my mind when we actually got the data. This is the town of Bridgewater, Virginia, which is in Rockingham County. We started with Chief Reed a while back. They went through the whole program of public information and education and into the enforcement. By code, after we do the public information and education, before any law violation is issued, there is 30 days of warning phase. So if you go through that violation in the first 30 days and you receive that letter in the mail, it will say warning violation on it, that you're saying, hey, slow down, just be careful. We also provide what they call free radar feedback signs for the school zones, which everyone's seen. It's the flashing sign that tells you your speed. In New Kent County, all of our zones are up. They'll be launched this fall. Every school zone beacon in the county where the flashing lights are, there's a radar feedback sign attached to that beacon. So before you enter into that enforcement area, you're going to have your speed flashing at you. So when you have this rumor, it goes around, and it's hard to address this because people sometimes get the impression that it's for a revenue generated type of enforcement. These reports right here, and that's why it is so important to collect the data first and be open and transparent with the public so they can see how the program works if it's properly implemented. It's not about revenue generation and collection. It's about the reduction of speed in our school zones, period. The media likes sometimes to take a narrative and run with how many citations have you issued, how much money have you collected. It's not about that. This is about the safety of the children and the amount of reduction of the speed offenses in the school zones. And just to show you how the program works if it's properly followed. Let me get to that one here. Okay, right down here on the bottom, speed study database. John Whalen Elementary, or John Whalen School in the town of Bridgewater, in our baseline speed study. It had 1,095 violations that was collected, that's raw data within a 5-day period. 2 public and information phase, which means that we connect with the police department, sheriff's office, locality, school board, the municipality social media platforms. We do school banners, we do yard signs, we do anything and everything that we can to drive this message out to the people who will be traveling through their school systems, to properly educate. No matter who your vendor is, no matter who's over your program, it will not be successful until you properly educate the people that it's going to affect. And that is the whole purpose of this program. And this police department started off with 1,095 violations. They're just public and information. This is no enforcement. This is just the educational thing. We went from 1,095 violations to 97. Okay, through the warning phase, we dropped to 86. And then at the end of it, we went back up to 94 post enforcement. But overall, we had a 91% reduction rate in the town of Bridgewater. That was our reduction rate. And we continuously track this and provide it to the locality so you can see the success of this program. When school lets out for the summer, before we start back, we start another very aggressive PI and E-Wave, which is public information and education. We like to start about the 1st of July and start pushing that information back out through the school portals, reminding parents. I've got all of my accounts, they're SRO officers. When they meet the parent line in the morning, they hand out information to the car robber line and to the parents that's going to be coming through these saying, slow down. Pay attention when you get in the school zones. This is our first account in the Commonwealth of Virginia, was with County Sheriff's Office. We started their program back in early 2022. Our schools, we have 3 active schools in the county, getting ready to launch the 4th one this fall. We had an issue with a permitting thing with VDOT where there was no school zone speed limit resolution filed years ago, so we had to go through an engineering firm to have our speed study done to get it qualified for VDOT to accept a school zone speed limit for that location. But at Fort Chisholm High School, Jackson Elementary, and Sheffy. Fort Chisholm High School, our baseline speed study. Now this is post enforcement. This is an active program that's actually up and running. They had 2,500 violations at the baseline 5-day speed study. We reduced it by 90, down to 90 violations per week. Jackson Elementary School had 1,000 violations. We reduced it to 59. Sheffield Elementary School had 297 violations in a week's time, and we reduced it down to 16 violations. So overall, the success of our program with county, and this is a local sheriff's office in Southwest Virginia, they stepped up to the plate, and their sheriff's statement was, we don't put public perception in front of public safety. Our kids come first, and if we can do anything to be proactive, to put something in place to prohibit something tragic from happening, we're going to take the correct step and move forward for the safety of the kids. They had a 96% overall reduction, which from a former law enforcement standpoint, I just couldn't believe it was achievable until I seen the data for myself. Now, it's a little bit different in Wythe County. Each VDOT region across the Commonwealth County has sometimes different rules on how they implement programs. Wythe County, when we submitted our permits to VDOT for the radar feedback signs to be placed in their school zones, we were denied at that point in time. New Kent County, they have granted our request to put the radar feedback signs to give that last visual cue to every motorist traveling into their school zones, just to say, hey, slow down, be aware, there's kids present, and that's the main focus on our program, to take the data, to be open and transparent, to make sure that anyone in that community, from school administration, parents, teachers, school bus drivers, any type of motorist when they travel through these school zones, that they are properly educated. Because in Southwest Virginia, where I live, when photo speed was passed, there's a little community, it's in Northeast Tennessee, that I had to overcome this hurdle in my neck of the state because of enforcement for revenue. We had one locality who just put a photo speed up on a 4-lane with no major intersections, no schools, nothing. And when the vehicles would come to the photo speed device, they would slow down. And they'd slow down for about the width of a football field. And guess what? They would speed up again because they knew what was that. That's the whole purpose for photo speed enforcement, because you want that traffic flow to slow down when they get to that school zone. And after they travel safely through that school zone, then they're going to speed back up. But it's a force multiplier for your chiefs and your sheriffs. Every chief and sheriff across the Commonwealth is facing the same problem: retention of good employees and having people come into the profession now. There's more people just about leaving than there are coming on board. And every locality we go into, that's some of the issues that we run into. Even the school resource officers within the school zones, they're tending to the kids, the parents, to making sure everything's safe on campus. You try to assign someone to a school zone within traffic enforcement to take care of a problem like this. As soon as you put your car in park to do enforcement, they send you on a call for service. And this is a force multiplier. You don't have to put fuel in it. You don't have to put tires on it. It's continuously sitting there watching this one problem. It's a non-biased means of enforcement. It only sees the violation. And I've had the privilege of starting out working with a local Commonwealth attorney in our region where we had our first contract courts. We've seen it through from the rebuttal process all the way through the appeals process in court. And everything has worked out just exactly like the code has defined it would. And if someone receives a violation in the mail and they say, I wasn't driving the vehicle, they can either take care of it online by a transfer of liability form and send it in and have their information extracted from the system. As long as they provide the correct information, then it would be sent back out. If they want to come before the district court judge in a civil hearing, then they can go to the clerk of court and just file an affidavit to have their case put on the docket, and then we provide that information. So the process works as long as you follow it. We like to move very slowly through this point because each locality has different methods to the report systems and how things play out. So we like to take our time with it and make sure that things go correctly, because the last thing we want to do is cause a burden or have any issue for the local law enforcement agencies that we're partnered with. But right now in the Commonwealth, we've got 7 active accounts going right now, with about 5 more within the end negotiation stages, where that's coming on board hopefully in the near future before the new school year kicks off. But that's our company just in a nutshell. I know it's hard to go through this because a normal presentation usually takes about an hour to hour and 20 minutes. And we want, if you have any questions, please ask, because I want you to have the correct information. And if I don't have the information to satisfy your question, I will get back to you either in person, online, or by phone. We'll talk and make sure that you have proper understanding of it.
All right. Who wants to get started? Couple questions I have. So if we could go to the Nelson County Middle and High School item that talks about 5,300, looks like, and defining 100, I see your note, is anybody who goes essentially 11 miles an hour. Well, that's perfect.
By code is considered a violation.
So by code, that's considered a violation. So in 5 days, we'd have 5,300 violations. That's I'm reading your little sheet. Sorry, right there, bottom right corner.
Now, here's what I will explain to you on that. Usually, each jurisdiction, it varies across the state. Some localities flash their lights in the morning and the afternoon. Some localities flash their lights, as like the code gives you in 873, from a half an hour before regular school hours to a half an hour after. So we have some localities who flash their lights all day, depending upon the location of the school, because that's solely given to the discretion of the school superintendent. But for this purpose here, if you're looking at violations that would be considered a violation by law, you would take the 1,800 here.
Yep.
That's when your lights flash in the morning, and the 2,500 here.
Sure.
And then that would be, you would take the 871 out of this number.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't be the middle of the day violation.
Sure. Got it. All right. And so code number is $100. $100 and
The
less.
Violation,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court says $100 per violation as a civil penalty. Now, the code under 882.1 allows a third-party vendor to enter into an agreement with a locality. And you will look at it, it says that they have to charge a fee for a service.
Yeah.
And our fee for our company is $25 per violation. $75 of that would come back to the locality.
Okay.
Okay, and each violation that is approved by code has to be approved by a sworn law enforcement officer under code.
All right. So if we play the numbers,
Mhm.
we take your 5314, subtract the 871, that's about 4443, 4,400 essentially. And we do $100, that's almost $500,000.
Okay,
Yeah. And so $500,000, and you're going to take essentially 25% of it. So about $100,000.
yeah, you're looking at the baseline numbers, ain't you?
I know, I'm working this
I
math of
understand
where we
you're
are.
working the math
Well,
in your head,
I mean,
but
these are real numbers.
They
hypothetical.
are real numbers, but here's the thing, you can never determine driving behavior. Now, this is a.
But neither can a camera.
This is a, huh?
I mean, it's a camera, it's automated. You said it's unbiased.
It is.
So
So.
its behavior is
once-
11 miles and
Think about this, if you do a 90% reduction through proper education and information and the proper placement of radar feedback signs, our goal
sure.
is 100% compliance.
And so,
You will
and
never-
I get that. So do you have any examples where, so for example, 29 is it's an interstate of sorts, right? Like there's people drive from Danville to DC every day. I mean, these are there's people who go from Danville or wherever to go to UVA.
That's correct.
That's a very common intersection. So when we educate, we aren't going to educate the drivers of Danville. We're not going to be able to educate the drivers of anybody who's coming from that direction, north or south. We can only educate the local populace, which I know we don't have there's probably 4,000 people who go to work
Right.
in various directions, but we ain't going to be able to educate the whole state of Virginia.
Well, you know, that's true, but you want to educate the populace that the enforcement's going to affect. So my question would be is all those drivers from other localities, why did they not take into consideration the flashing lights on 29 for our Nelson County students here that's attending their school zone? So when you put the radar feedback signs up and you give that last visual cue to that driver, when they coming up 29 or going down 29 and it's 55, they see the flashers and it reduces to 35. They know, hey, I'm entering that school zone. But when you put that last visual cue up, that their speed is actually looking at them eyeball to eyeball when they go through that.
Yeah.
If they go past that point, irregardless whether Sheriff Nelson, the sheriff sitting out there, or Virginia State Police, if they stop you, and here's one other thing that I like to throw out too as far as enforcement. And the reason this is passionate to me is because I spent 26 years in it. And anytime that you pull out new traditional enforcement in a work zone or in a school zone,
Sure.
it makes it more dangerous than it already is because people do not pay attention when blue lights come on. It happens.
Right.
And then when you accelerate your speed from the stop location to catch up with a violator that's going 20 or 30 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour of speed limit, it makes that whole situation, it's safer for the officer. You have less officer violator conduct or contact. And what you're trying to do is correct driving behavior
Sure.
to an automated means of enforcement that tries to make it safer for that. And then, like you say, if you focus on the baseline number, yeah, it has the potential to draw in money. It does. I mean, that's just the bottom line for traditional enforcement.
And I understand that. And where my hesitation comes from is safety is not a money-making mechanism.
That's exactly right.
It is never meant to be that. And knowing that that's a real dollar number that could exist, I am hesitant. Let's just say you get, 100 infractions a day, hypothetically. We're still talking very large numbers. And, $100 means a lot different from an affluent individual who's just driving to DC. They're going to throw that $100 in that letter, send it to you, and call it a day. They do not care. But it means a lot to the a Nelsonian who might be on the way to work and last 10 feet, he pushed on gas a little bit too hard. And I'm not really sure the mechanisms and where the point of the camera.
child's life if someone kills?
No one's
What about Mr. Gillette?
no one is saying any of that. It's the question of where we are with this mechanism. You know, we have SROs that we fund. We need to make sure that they're in the schools too, and making sure they're keeping those kids safe. And we don't have SROs in every school either. What about those kids' lives?
Well, and you know, and like I say, this is new to the whole Commonwealth.
I got you. And this is a new
And-
thing. And I'd be curious as to
Yeah, and
what
you
those
know,
examples look like.
we learn as we progress.
Sure.
And we try to find solutions to problems that make it safer for the traveling public.
Certainly.
And the law enforcement.
And the
officers.
children involved, of
And
course.
you know, it's not only local departments, state police has went up to RFP for this. And any violation that's issued
Sure.
by a deputy sheriff, a local town officer, or state trooper. Now, by code, state police issue a violation of summons. Any fine money that comes back as a byproduct of traffic safety goes to the state literary fund. Any violation that a local township or a county sheriff, no matter what road they're on, if they put their local adopted code where they've adopted the 46-2 motor vehicle code, and that summons is issued, and say it's speeding 45 and a 35, and they go to district court, and the general fine gets imposed, then that money comes back to the locality through a local fund to the board of supervisors to be reallocated into the general fund under the local county code or town code for any type of enforcement. No one wants to enforce for profit. That is a bad thing to happen.
Brings up a million questions.
Yes, sir.
All right, where in the area is the violation determined?
It's between the flashing lights on the.
The complete thing from the beginning to the end?
Yes, it's properly marked on 29 or at Rockfish. Like when you go into the school zone, you'll see it painted on the road like school.
So this thing picks up the license plate as it comes through and follows it through the
No,
entire?
sir. You know, what this is a traditional LiDAR enforcement device, just like law enforcement uses on the highway now. It is a single beam, single lane device that's on a stationary fixed pole that emits a beam of radiation into the roadway. And it is single beam, single lane only. So as a vehicle travels through that beam, and that beam is usually fixed to the roadway anywhere between 85 feet to 200 feet, depending upon the device used. And once that vehicle breaks that beam, there's parameters set within the software of that LiDAR device and that camera system. If it breaks that parameter of 11 miles an hour or more,
For anywhere during that time?
when the lights are flashing,
So at any time in that transit, you
you
Hit
break
12.
that threshold, it is considered a violation under 882.1.
Yeah, one of the things Clinton brought up was, how do you know who's driving?
The code, the violation is issued to the registered owner of the vehicle, not the violator, not the person behind the wheel. Now, if you receive a summons in the mail and you say, I wasn't driving my vehicle that day, my wife was. At that point in time, you can go on our website and hit what they call a transfer of liability link.
You get a summons, if it
Yeah.
summons
Yes,
to Nelson County?
Yes, it will have the sheriff's office patch on the top of it. We do all the collection.
Well, I've been in New York City for a while, and people would get parking tickets and they throw them away. What would prevent a person from doing that?
Well, right now in the code, where this is new, there's not what you say, any real teeth to the matter to do collections. The code specifically states the process for collection if someone does not pay the violation. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, the sheriff has the authority under state code. If we provide the information for an unpaid violation, he can request a civil summons to the magistrate. And it can either be personal served within the county if the resident lives here, or it can be sent
Well,
to.
you use the word can. Is that normally done, or
That's the sheriff's option, but whether if he wants to follow
that
True
has
with-
nothing to do with you, it has to do with the sheriff?
for people who reside within the Commonwealth. If they live outside of the Commonwealth, we have a partnership with a government collection agency that only deals with counties, cities, and municipalities for government collections, that we turn it over after 60 days of non-payment. Once they can go through any means by the code. It says to exhaust any means by out-of-state collections. Once that fee is collected, it's paid to us, we give you your.
So the fee is paid to you.
Yes, sir, and then we in turn charge a $25 only processing fee. And you get the $75. For our infrastructure, our costs, there is no cost associated to this with the county at all, period. And you should have a letter in your packet that I
Well,
sent.
yeah,
But I'm just
there's
saying,
always a cost.
well,
And
depending
one of
on-
the things is, there is a cost. It might not be money, but there is a cost.
well,
And there's a benefit too. You know, that's
Yeah.
what you're asking us to do right now, is to figure out what are the benefits as opposed to the cost.
Again, it goes back to the old saying, do you put public perception in front of public safety?
And,
Do you do the right thing for the right reasons at the right time? Or do you let emotions drive your decision and not data? So that's the true way to look at it. Is when you look at the data that's presented. If you have an issue or a problem, you try to implement a solution that changes the driving behavior.
You know,
Yeah.
I haven't made up my mind yet. I want you to know that. But, you know, one of the points the person made was the privatization of law enforcement. And being somewhat familiar, excuse me, with like the privatizations of prisons, which most people would consider a complete disaster. You know, although it looked good in the beginning, it's.
Well, and you know what I would encourage anyone to do is any agency or locality, county, town, or city that we partnered with is to reach out and.
Yeah,
call
I
them.
mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know,
So, but you talk, when are you talking about implementing this?
this would be, if the locality, say the sheriff, decided to move forward with this program. You're looking in reality, the most time-consuming process for this is going through the VDOT phases of permitting. Because once we have a former construction safety engineer that used to work as a contractor for VDOT that does our Virginia permitting now. Once that permit is finalized and submitted, it usually takes the residency engineer a couple months to turn it over just to make sure that it meets all the criteria by VDOT. You know, that they, within our permit, they look at the site plans and make sure everything is put in a safe location. And VDOT engineering has to sign off on it. And we have a company, it's a turnkey job. The only thing that the locality has invested in this as far as a manpower issue is by state code, they have to be the final approval on a violation before it can be considered.
Well, that's the primary reason that I'm at all interested in what you're talking about, is the manpower problems.
And I actually had a conversation with Major Thompson last night regarding that. We spoke from Wythe County Sheriff's Office, and he has been tasked by the sheriff to oversee the implementation and how the program goes. And he does all the approval of violations through 3 school zones. And he was, I asked him, I said, honestly, John, how long does it take? And he said, I take my time with each violation. And it's about a minute per violation to do an approval.
You probably mentioned this before, but how long has this program been going on?
It was passed in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah, but how long is the actual implementation of the program?
Well, Wythe County will be starting their 2nd school year. They
So
started last year as using the handheld method, just a regular handheld lottery unit.
So even where it's been implemented in the first year.
Full. This will be starting our
Okay.
first full school year.
Have they, what kind of, I looked, is that the Chiswell High School?
Fort Chisholm, yes, sir.
Fort Chiswell? Do you have anything that's similar to 29 with the traffic count we have? Because at Chiswell, I mean, that's got, I think it's just a regular turning intersection, no different than what we would consider Nelly's Fort. So it's not necessarily a 50,000 car area every 5 days. I mean, 29 is a serious corridor.
It is a very.
It is a
serious corridor.
very serious corridor, you know.
You know, we've not got anything in Campbell. Right now, we've got City of Bristol, Smith County, Witt County, Wayne County.
But all those aren't on major highways like 29.
No, New Kent County would probably be the only one, and it's more rural city, but they've got one New Kent highway that runs through that has a pretty significant number on it. But as far as actually 4-lane Bridgewater.
The town of Bridgewater?
The town of Bridgewater school is on the 4-lane. Yes, sir. Sure is. And they had a
4-lane.
90-some% reduction.
Sure.
I'll mention one thing. This is probably our biggest complaint area is speed enforcement in the school zones. When this study was conducted, we actually had deputies present in the school zones that actually conducted traffic stops and issued summons. And those numbers are pretty astronomical. I will say in the beginning, when I learned about businesses that provide a service like this, I agree with Quentin. I was thinking, okay, is this, I'm trying to make money. But as I learned more through Greg educating me on the preventative measures, educating people and the numbers that are produced, that's key to educate people and also give them a warning well in advance. And so that's where that infrastructure really would help our school zones out tremendously because we don't have the manpower to set up deputies on each side of 29 because even the study shows, and we can show you in the CAD reports, that often people will call in floods and say, well, you didn't have a deputy in the school zone this morning. And I look back to check to make sure they were there, and our deputies will log out. They will mark out in the school zones in the mornings when they're afforded the luxury of being there. And anyhow, our citizens will not see them because they're south of the school zone or north of the school zone, out with the violator. And so passerbys, they don't see them. And so that deterrent's not there necessarily. So this is that force multiplier, as Greg mentioned, that is key, I think. But having that buy-in from you all is very important, and our citizens and the kids are our future. And that's the thing is looking back, what would happen if one of our kids or the school bus is hit in the crossing or family's lost? You all just paid honor to Officer Wagner today, okay? Y'all have heard me right the moon about funding and about getting people to work here to serve our citizens. This would be a service for our citizens and our youth, our future. All right, that's just my view.
This is the second time I've seen your presentation.
Yes, sir.
And I had weeks to mull it over.
Yes, sir.
My first response, identical to Mr. Bibbs. I'm really against, something like this as a revenue generator, and I really don't like surveillance from the get-go.
Right.
But if I was looking for a best case scenario to accomplish the same type of results that this program does, I can't even envision one. I don't think we could have, 5, 7, 10 times the traffic staff that we have now and have the type of, and have a safer zone that this could create as a result of that. And that means something to me. I'm really sympathetic that we've got, 2 school zones on 29. I am not sympathetic to people that are going 10 miles an hour above the speed limit under any circumstances. I have no compassion for them at all. And when I go over it, I have no compassion for myself either. Just saying. Along the 151 corridor, to have any kind of a deterrent that can create a safer corridor along 151 especially connected with the schools, but under any circumstances to me, is worth being thoughtful about. Because as the sheriff mentioned, one of the things that I hear mostly is like, where are the traffic cops along 151? And because they're concerned of the impacts of 151, is not just of speeding, but tractor trailer traffic as well. On a tangent, the only way we're going to keep tractor trailer traffic off of 6 and 151 is by creating situations that are safer. It's the only way we can do it. And this creates a safer, a slower, and an accountable, but also an educative, component.
That's the key.
Which is, I think, the only way that we will have a safer corridor is when the tractor trailer traffic and the people that speed take a quicker route, and where they can do that and feel safe and expedited in terms of doing it. And I don't think that 151 is that. And the location of Rockfish Elementary is really key. Just being south of the straightaways of Afton and just north of the south part of Afton is a really important area, because that's where you have the twists and the turns and the change in elevation that is so key. And so when Sheriff Hill brought this up maybe 2 years ago to me, I just kind of dismissed it off the cuff as being something, but what happened since then, and this is a pretty interesting story, I gave my Toyota Prius, I sacrificed my Prius for a pickup, which I had pickup truck envy for decades, finally gave up my Prius and gave it to my son. I got issued 3 violations on that car before we changed title for New Jersey and New York, where they were under photo surveillance of the car. And of course, it came to me. So, I kind of accept that as a cost of doing business and took care of it, of course. But, this cat is out of the box, and it is, I really think, and if you're talking about safety, we're not talking about convenience or anything else. We're not even talking about money. If we're talking about safety alone, I can't even conceive of a best case scenario that would come close to these kind of results under any other circumstance. Really, I can't. Are there problems? Oh yeah. I don't like surveillance. I don't like being under cameras. I don't like the incentives that we have to create an environment that's not safe. There are many of them. Don't like those at all. I'd like to nip those in the bud before they get, before people start, being impacted by them. But, given this the thought that I have, I'm very sympathetic to this, and I think it's a pretty good program, and I really don't know that it's a good program because I really haven't seen it happen. But I would certainly be willing to consider it in the future.
Well, we are open door as far as references. As far as addressing the one concern you have on privacy, that is something that's brought up across the state in multiple board meetings. The code, the way it's written, any violation captured for a violation of either under 882.1 for a school zone ordinance or work zone ordinance, that cannot be used for like investigative purposes. It can only be used for the violation which it was captured under code. If there's a violation captured and it's not approved by a law enforcement officer within 60 days of it being captured, it's to be purged from the system. So there is stipulations in the Code of Virginia to protect privacy concerns from citizens that the data collected is being used for other than the purposes it's intended for. And that has been addressed within the code.
Yeah, and for the people who are conscious and who are aware and who are safety conscious, it doesn't affect them directly.
Yeah, and where it's a new program, It's new legislation. We're going into the third year. It's just, people are learning that it's out there. And it's kind of a step of faith when a locality looks at it. But as you say, if you look at the data that's provided and you look at the focus on the amount of reduction of violations, nothing else, to try to get 100% compliance is our goal, but get as close to it as possible. I myself never dreamed that we would see a 90% reduction. I'm just going to be straight up with you. I didn't think we'd see it until we actually see the data from Bridgewater and Webb.
And just one more thing, I drive much more carefully when I'm driving through DC
Mhm.
than I used to.
And I understand what you're talking about.
Because, you know, the tendency is to be aggressive
I've
in
received
situations like that. And
4 violations by mail myself from the Easy Pass lane and I-66 corridor. And then once I got it, there was one character transponded wrong that was read wrong and entered into the database. So I understand. There's issues that can happen with any type of technology that's implemented in the field. But the way to correct it is going about it very slowly, making sure that when you implement the statute correctly. And that's the way that we approach every account that we've got, because we want it to work, be a success for the school system, for the local law enforcement, and for the governing body. We want it to be successful for everyone involved, period. That's the hands down, that's the bottom line. Safety is the bottom line.
If this is approved at some time, how long before you get out of it if you don't like it? How can you?
What we do is we sign a contract with the locality for 2 years. Okay, and the reason we need 2 years is we come into the locality and for the infrastructure, if the school system's blinkers are not up to code and they have to be upgraded, if new placards have to be put into place, we do that at no cost to the school system, at no cost to the county. Anything that we put into this program to get it up and off the ground, we eat the cost of the construction and implementation up front. It takes us 2 years for us to get our infrastructure costs that we've invested into the locality to make sure the program is implemented correctly and up to code and up to BOS standards before we can do any type of enforcement. There are some localities that we're looking at right now that we've done the speed studies, but they don't even have flashing lights in their locality. But by code, before you can do any type of photo speed enforcement, to be considered a school zone, there has to be a resolution adopted through VDOT that declares a reduction in speed limit to be considered a school zone. And there has to be flashing lights put in place. We're actually going into some localities, if we get to that point in contract, where we're going to absorb the costs and put the new flashing lights in for the school system and for the county at absolutely zero cost to the locality. We have to absorb that back over X amount of period in our contract to break even on the cost that we're implementing and giving to the county at no cost upfront. So.
Mr. Barton, to answer your question, I believe there are termination parameters within the contract. And if we were to terminate the contract prior to the 2-year term, then there would be some prorated cost to the county. We'd have to pay BLS back for their infrastructure costs.
That's correct, sir.
Do you have any examples of a major throwaway anywhere other than Virginia?
I can check with the other states that we're in. We're in Tennessee, Georgia, Louisiana, Iowa.
Because I just checked the
Yeah.
2 intersections that you had indicated, and the speed limits on those highways was 45 miles an hour and had stoplights. So let's try to, if you can,
Which 2 intersections?
that would have been the one in Bridgewater.
Okay.
I think it's 42, Route 42, something of that nature.
I'm not sure right
Anyways,
off without looking at the actual.
It's 45
map.
miles an hour, and that regularly is 40. And so,
And it should go to 35 or 25 here.
and it drops down to 35. And, I guess we drop from 60 to 30, 45, 35. What is our school zone? 35, 35. Yeah, we're 60 mile an hour thoroughfare. So,
And I think one of the other things, I don't know if it was mentioned, but new signage and more visibility, more warnings way ahead of time, letting them know before they get into the school zone. So the visibility, if I'm correct, will be increased, and plus signage, there'd be increased signage to let drivers know that the school zone is right before.
And actually, this year, starting July 1, they amended the code under 873 to extend the school zone from 600 feet to 750 feet. So it goes back to each EDOT district on what their engineer wants to require us to put proper signage up to warn upcoming motors. And by code, it says there has to be a sign placed within 1,000 feet of any type of this type of enforcement that gives motors proper warning that says school zones, photo speed enforced. If I had a picture, I could show you, but I don't have it with me today, of our New Kent County school zones of the signage, and we had to go up by VDOT recommendations as far as new signage put up, and then we extended the school beacons from 12 feet to 15 feet because their engineer wanted us to put the radar feedback sign on the actual flasher to get that motorist that very last visual cue before you got into that school zone and before the enforcement area. So you're actually getting the static sign of the mother-child crossing the road. If it's painted on the road, you getting that warning. Then you get the flashing light with the two beacons and then the radar feedback sign before you get in. So you're actually getting 4 visual indicator cues before you get into that enforcement area.
We're only enforcing this during that period of time. We're not doing it in between, but
That's
the
correct,
hour.
Only when the lights are out operational. That's correct.
So we've been on this topic for quite a while now, and we do need to get on with our agenda. So board, we do have a decision to make, Of course, I maintain my hesitancy. I mean, to your contract, I can just understand a buyout. I would expect that to exist there. And a 25% commission, it's pretty hefty.
Well, it's a $25 per violation.
So it could be $75.
So we're
and then
not, it's by code, you're not allowed to do what they call a revenue split in Virginia. Other states, you can look at a gross revenue income and say, okay.
So the max is $100, right?
The max is $100 penalty civil violation.
Right.
But a third-party vendor.
Can you charge $25 on top?
$25 processing fee.
So it's 120.
Infrastructure
So
cost. So
is
we
it,
would get $25 per process
Yeah.
violation.
and we get
And the
7.
locality would have $75 come back to the general fund, and you can either reallocate it.
No, I
in the school-
understand.
I know, but
It's
you can put it back in the
25%
school.
commission.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
So what does the
Have a
board?
90% reduction usually. So that's what you need to look at, so just the baseline.
All right. What's the board want to do? We have, I think, was indicated we could do a public hearing. Obviously, do not have Mr. Parr with us today. So if we wanted to wait till Mr. Parr got here, we could also do that. Or just table it, we can move forward. What is the pleasure of the board?
I would really be in favor of doing a public hearing and hearing the public's comments on this because, it's their community. And I think that how I feel, personally is certainly, dependent on how the community feels about something like this. Because I think being thoughtful about this is really important.
All right. So public hearing, do you want to make a motion for that? I would suggest, what's our next month look like? I don't know if we have a lot going on.
I don't think there's a whole lot right now.
Would we have the same presentation at the public hearing?
We
that
could
just
easily,
had?
we could easily do that. So
I believe so.
Okay,
Our
we might want to
August
put that off for a month.
is on August 8th, so.
yeah, let's do
You want to do it in September?
September.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So that's gonna work for us.
because under our best case scenario, we'd probably be looking at the following school year anyway.
Okay. Sounds good. Make a motion for a public hearing in September.
I'll make a motion that we have a public hearing on this issue at our September Board of Supervisors meeting.
Sounds great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Barton. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Let's take a 5-minute break.